What's up guys, this is Zach here bringing you a first impressions video for Neverwinter, a free-to-play MMORPG developed by Cryptic and Perfect World. Now, Neverwinter is a bit of an interesting subject. Ever since rumors of its impending release began creeping around the internet, I just couldn't wait to play what promised to be the MMO version of the extremely popular single-player RPG series. Well, the problem is really twofold. For one, Neverwinter 1 and 2 were also MMOs in a certain sense thanks to the advent of persistent world servers. And secondly, Neverwinter the MMO has nothing whatsoever to do with the classic BioWare RPG series. The style of gameplay is completely different and the art style is miles apart from the single player games. Now for starters, Neverwinter allows you to pick from a wide variety of races and character customization is as solid as you might expect from a Cryptic game, even if it's a bit subpar compared to Champions Online and Star Trek. Now, the game does fall a bit short in regards to classes. Unlike its chief competitor DDO, Dungeons & Dragons Online, there really aren't very many classes to choose from, and multi-classing really isn't a possibility. As of the time this video is created, there are only 5 classes to choose from: the Control Wizard, the Trickster Rogue, the Devoted Cleric, the Guardian Fighter, and the Great Weapon Fighter. For this first look video, I played the Control Wizard, and the Control Wizard is very much your typical magic DPS class. They use cloth armor and robes and fling lots of elemental spell attacks. They also work well in a party-based setting by employing several crowd control-oriented abilities. Now, the Trickster Rogue was the class that I and everyone else played during the first open beta test. The Trickster Rogue can best be compared to the Rogue class in Dragon Age 2. I find the combat style to be very similar between the classes in those two games. The Trickster Rogue uses medium armor and dual wields daggers. Now they're very fast and can teleport short distances and turn invisible to confuse enemies and to avoid taking damage. And aside from all that, they just look cool in combat and are a lot of fun to play. They're probably one of the easiest classes to level thanks to the wide variety of survivability tools that they have at their disposal. Next up is the Great Weapon Fighter. The Great Weapon Fighter is similar in spirit to a Berserker-style heavily armored DPS. They utilize giant swords, and while they are melee fighters, they have a long reach. They utilize several skills such as a charge and a spinning AoE that makes them feel similar in spirit to a Fury Warrior in World of Warcraft. The Devoted Cleric is the healer of the group and uses chainmail armor. They utilize ranged attacks and can do some damage, although their primary role is to be the healer of a dungeon party. Lastly is the sword and shield wielding Guardian Fighter. The Guardian Fighter is Neverwinter's tank class. Guardians don't do a whole lot of damage, but their massive amount of hit points and strong plate armor allows them to take a beating. In the first few minutes of Neverwinter is actually eerily similar to DDO. You find yourself on a shipwrecked coast and you must scavenge for whatever armor and weapons you can find before making your way up to the city. Before you get to the city, you complete a couple of introductory quests fighting mobs that really don't pose much of a threat, and then you work your way through a fairly linear introductory dungeon that includes a boss fight with a rather large fella. Overall, while the beginning of Neverwinter isn't remarkable, I like it. It's simple enough and gives you a nice preview of what to expect from the game without overwhelming you. I could, however, probably do without the sparkling trail that leads you from the quest objectives to quest objectives. It makes questing a bit too trivial, though I'll at least credit the sparkling trail for being accurate. I mean, those of us who played the original EverQuest have some bad memories of sparkling trails leading to quests or NPCs, or more honestly, brick walls and cliff edges. When you finish the intro dungeon, you make your way into the city, and that's where the game gets really mediocre. First of all, the city itself looks nothing like Neverwinter from the single-player games. Something about a major disaster almost destroying the city or something, but even beyond that, the massive amounts of color and cartoony art direction make this entire game barely even look like Dungeons & Dragons. The character design and armor designs are also very underwhelming, and no matter the race, the character models are bland, and most armor looks pretty poor as well. And when you first start out, you get quite a few gear upgrades, but it's mostly just recolors of the same armor design. Likewise, areas outside the city are all uninspired and generic. You have a burning town, a town in ruins, a forest area, a graveyard, an ice area, and some other generic fantasy environments that are all fairly disjointed. Travel from area to area is done by clicking a door or gate at the entrance or exit to a zone, and clicking to enter a new area from a map that appears on screen. Neverwinter doesn't feel like a cohesive world in the least. And to be fair, Neverwinter Nights 2 had the same problem, but regardless, no one ever said that was a good thing. I like to play MMORPGs that draw me into the game world, that make me feel like I've escaped into a sort of alternate reality. Neverwinter, despite taking place in one of the most iconic fantasy worlds this side of Middle-earth, just doesn't do that. It's a lackluster attempt at best. Now, as you move through these pedestrian zones, you'll complete quests for NPCs as you would in a traditional MMORPG. Combat in Neverwinter is unique, but it's a mixed bag. I'll give it credit for being action-oriented, but it's poorly executed compared to Terra and even Raiders, which is another free-to-play MMORPG from Perfect World. While the combat is fast and fairly stylish, it isn't very responsive, and the game constantly swarms you with enemies, leaving you with only limited dodge capabilities that function on a recharge timer. I hope you like chugging health potions because you'll be doing a lot of that. If you run out, you can always buy some from the cash shop. If you die, you can always respawn using an item from the cash shop. For that matter, the game really seems to encourage you plug money into the cash shop. Lockboxes found throughout the world require keys purchased in the cash shop to open. Roughly, you'll pay about $1 per key. Astral Diamonds is the only currency that can be used on the auction house, and aside from daily quests, Astral Diamonds can also be purchased from real money. Now, aside from that, there's your typical mounts and appearance gears. Overall, Neverwinter's cash shop isn't the worst I've ever seen, but it could definitely be a lot better. Now, at this point, I feel like I've been too negative on the game, but it does have some good things going for it. One of the most unique features is the Foundry. The Foundry is Neverwinter's version of BioWare's Aurora toolset, which gave players the ability to create their own content and really extended the life of the original Neverwinter Nights and to a lesser degree its sequel. The Foundry plays to that same goal. Players have a lot of control over creating their own adventures for which they can share with others. Also, dungeon parties are easy to come by and fairly entertaining. The game launched with a traditional WoW-esque dungeon finder that makes it extremely easy to put parties together for the game's numerous instances. Outside of that, the instances play out like you might expect. You'll travel from point A to point B, killing mobs and picking up loot along the way. The game also has PvP content, which, while not really my cup of tea, can be a nice diversion while you're bored. Now, overall, I think Neverwinter is a decent game, but it still isn't that definitive Dungeons & Dragons MMO that gamers are hoping for. Instead, it's a fun time waster, or just a good side game to play while you're bored of your main MMO. But there's just not enough that immediately grabs me to justify continuing to play. Now, if you guys want to learn more about Neverwinter, head on over to the game's official website. Check out MMOattack.com for more MMO gaming news, reviews, and giveaways.